Terrorist attacks adhere to a specific procedure known as the terrorist attack cycle. This cycle encompasses target selection, planning, deployment, escape, and exploitation. Whether it's a terrorist act like a bombing or kidnapping, or a criminal act like theft, there's typically some form of pre-operational hostile surveillance involved. This surveillance aims to assess a potential target's value, security measures, and vulnerabilities, making terrorists and other attackers susceptible to detection during this phase. In general, terrorists often exhibit subpar surveillance skills. Identifying this poor surveillance technique can provide individuals and organizations with the time needed to involve the appropriate authorities, avoid immediate threats, and prevent attacks. In surveillance detection (SD), the U.S. government often uses the acronym TDD to define principles for identifying hostile surveillance and counterintelligence activities. TDD stands for time, environment, distance, and demeanor. Essentially, if someone is observed over time, in different environments and distances, or displays poor surveillance techniques, it suggests they are under surveillance. Demeanor becomes especially critical in situations where specific locations or modes of public transportation are targeted or in cases of ambush attackers. Poor demeanor indicators include people wearing inappropriate clothing for the weather, unusual bulges under clothing, wires protruding, excessive sweating, mumbling or fidgeting, attempts to avoid security or law enforcement, and appearing out of place. To identify hostile surveillance, one must first identify optimal observation points, OPs, offering optimal views of critical locations. Close attention should be paid to vehicles and people exhibiting poor surveillance demeanor or appearing out of place. Surveillance detection personnel should conduct pattern and route analyses to determine predictable and vulnerable points along the target's travel routes. This analysis should include identifying choke points, geographical features where the target must travel and where rapid forward motion or escape is challenging. Varying routes and travel times is an ideal countermeasure to avoid predictability. Hostile surveillance operatives often change their appearance and vehicles, making it crucial to focus on facial features, build, mannerisms, gait, and identifying marks. Regarding vehicles, special attention should be paid to characteristics like body damage, stickers, and other unique features. There are three primary types of surveillance-related activities: surveillance, SV, surveillance detection, SD, and countersurveillance, CS. Surveillance, SV. Hostile surveillance conducts purposeful observation to collect intelligence for planning hostile actions, be they criminal or terrorist, against specific targets. Surveillance detection, SD, conducted by various entities. SD aims to identify if surveillance is being conducted against a specific target. Reports of suspicious behavior or indicators are then analyzed and directed to the appropriate authorities for a response. Countersurveillance, CS. Professionals conduct countersurveillance once hostile surveillance is identified. This involves surveillance of the hostile surveillance to gather intelligence for manipulation, exploitation, or apprehension. It's crucial to avoid crossing over into the role of countersurveillance during surveillance detection, as it can compromise future countersurveillance operations conducted by authorities and drive the surveillance into hiding. Surveillance detection is effective because it allows hostile surveillance to operate openly, unaware that they are being watched. If intelligence collected by surveillance detection warrants further investigation, proper authorities can design a professional countersurveillance operation to exploit or capture the hostile surveillance. Applying professional surveillance detection to security and counterterrorism operations enables the detection and prevention of terrorist attacks in the planning phases, reduces the number of attacks, and ensures safer operations in high-risk environments.